Right now, mourners across the country saying their final goodbyes to conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Today's celebration of life comes ahead of tomorrow's memorial for Kirk in Arizona. Thousands are expected to attend, including President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, both expected to speak at his service. Utah Valley University holding a vigil for unity, honoring Kirk's legacy as a debater.
In times of loss and hardship, it can be easy to focus on differences. But Charlie reminded us that our true strength is found in what brings us together.
And Russia launching another strike on Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying civilian areas were targeted, leaving at least 3 dead. It comes as military officials say Russia once again violated the airspace of another European country, this time Estonia. Russian pilots ignoring NATO signals entirely. France now sending its own jets to patrol the skies of its eastern allies. The troubling signs overseas. And a panel of RFK Jr. appointed advisors changing the CDC's vaccine recommendations just as the nation is heading into cold and flu season. How this may impact you at home. Thank you so much for joining us for NewsNation Now. I'm Nick Smith. Arizona is gearing up for the late conservative activist Charlie Kirk's memorial service Sunday. Top U.S. officials, including President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, are expected to attend and speak in Kirk's honor. This service comes more than a week since Kirk was fatally shot at Utah Valley University. Mr. Kirk's assassination sparking free speech debates and even the Senate passing legislation to create a national day of remembrance for Charlie Kirk. NewsNation's Kelly Meyer joins us live from Turning Point USA headquarters in Phoenix with the latest. Kelly, good afternoon. This has been an emotional week for so many people. What's it like right now where you are?
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. And I can't even tell you the amount of people that we're seeing out here right now. Actually, our cameraman Austin's I'm gonna step out of the way so he can show you some of the flowers, several of the flowers, balloons, signs, just countless that go up and down the road here. And you can see the people just coming out either to pray, to pay their respects, to come together from all over. We talked to folks from Idaho, from Kentucky, some that knew him, some that didn't know him, but say they felt like they knew him. And they are all coming out here today, just 24 hours ahead of the memorial service. Some of them will be going there tomorrow as well. But there is this level of concern over the security and the potential threats. We already learned about a man that was arrested here in Arizona just yesterday for being outside of where the stadium, where this event is going to take place, and being armed and impersonating law enforcement officials. He was taken into custody. He has since been released on bond, on bail, but that is the concern here for folks as well. We talked to some who say they're fearful, but they are here for Charlie. Take a listen.
I mean, there's always going to be that threat, but it won't deter us from our support and our love for the movement.
It is fearful having, the possibility that somebody could attack for no reason. But it is important for all of us to stand up and show that he's had a message and we're continuing that message.
And a senior Department of Homeland Security official tells NewsNation that this event, the memorial service, the funeral, has been designated. It's a special event assessment rating level 1. That is the highest national significance you can give an event. It's similar to what you would see for the State of the Union or presidential inaugurations. Nick.
Kelly, I know that there are a number of moving parts, but quick question. Have you been able to learn anything more about the Sunday service for Kirk?
So we do know some of the speakers who will be there, as well as those that will be in attendance. We know President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, as well as Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow, who has been named now the CEO of Turning Point USA. That was a wish from Charlie Kirk he had mentioned before in the event of his passing. We also know that many members of President Trump's cabinet will also be there and speaking. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr., and his Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, who rarely speaks in public. She will also be delivering remarks there tomorrow. So a lot of people, not only from the White House, but people from across the country that will be filling that stadium where normally the NFL team, the Arizona Cardinals, play. It holds 60,000 plus people. They are expecting that many and even more. They already have an overflow room ready. Nick.
Kelly Meyer with the latest from Arizona. Kelly, thank you so much. As funeral plans take shape ahead of tomorrow's memorial service, Congress passing a national day of remembrance for Charlie Kirk, marking his birthday, October 14th, as that date. Earlier today, NewsNation spoke with Republican Congressman Richard McCormick of Georgia on this bipartisan move and what he expects ahead of that funeral.
I want to point out that the majority of Democrats in the House voted for this and had a very positive attitude. I also want to point out that the Senate unanimously passed the October 14th remembrance, and I think that's great. Charlie Kirk is kind of an enigma. If you think about it, he's not really political, he's not really religious, he's not a politician, he's not supported by the government, but what he did has been transformational, and some people don't like that. But we all define ourselves individually. Whether I hold the door for somebody, it's not because they deserve it. Whether I respect my parents or not, it's not because they are good people or not. We do it to define ourselves. And I think those people who voted against this, the people who continue to be belligerent and divisive, they're defining themselves. They're not defining Charlie or the party or the House or anybody else.
You know, political violence is a growing issue in this country. We talk about it, it seems like now, every single day. Megyn Kelly, who's a friend of Charlie Kirk, spoke with Batya Ungar-Sargon for her new show that is premiering later today. We want to remind everybody of that. They spoke about the problem of violence in the country. Let's take a listen together.
These latest polls that just hit, there's a YouGov and one other that show, the other one shows 55% of Democrats think political violence is sometimes okay. The YouGov one shows 34%, but when you look on the GOP side, how many think political violence is ever okay, it's down to 7%. This is a left-wing problem, and I don't even need a poll to show me. I can see Charlie in a casket. That tells me everything I need to know.
All right, some strong statements from Megyn there. What needs to be done on both sides of the aisle to violence to end? Because we just keep having this conversation, and now, of course, with Kirk, it's just getting worse.
Well, ultimately, this is about convincing people to do the right thing. And I want to point out the people who are producing the right product. And I'll point to my election and what we did. You can see the people who are being successful aren't focused on winning an argument. We're focused on winning a friend. You're not going to convince somebody to come over to your side. You're not going to grow the church by punching somebody in the face. You're not going to convert somebody by telling them they're an idiot. If you want to grow the party, if you want to grow a movement, I think Charlie Kirk really defined that. He used logic, he used love, he talked about what's good for all people. That's convincing, that's going to move the needle. This hatred, this rhetoric, this anarchy that has been around since the beginning of humankind has not been effective. It's just insulting to everybody else, and usually it's eliminated in short order when it becomes violent because nobody thinks it's okay to go around killing people when you disagree.
No one thinks that's okay. And joining me now to help me break that down, discussing the political tensions across our nation ahead of tomorrow's memorial service is Jason Mangone, Executive Director at More in Common US. Jason, good afternoon. With threats of violence rising, how do you think lawmakers are doing when it comes to their messaging on political divides and the violence it's causing? Are we seeing enough bipartisan and cooling of the rhetoric?
You know, first of all, good afternoon. Great to be with you. The politician that you just got had on is doing a great job. The bottom line is overwhelming majorities of Republicans and Democrats alike both say that political violence is unacceptable. And I know that you showed that YouGov poll earlier. Another way to look at it is there is a small minority of Americans that do tolerate political violence. In polling that we ran, we found that the strongest predictor isn't party or ideology, but it's screen time. We found that those who spend 5 hours a day or more online are nearly 4 times as likely to excuse political violence. So I don't think that political violence is a red America problem or a blue America problem. I think it's people trapped in angry corners of the internet. And the bottom line is our country is on the precipice of entering a cycle of political violence, and that's not good for anyone.
And Jason, do you believe that screen time is a factor of, right after Kirk's assassination, there was a warning from the federal government talking about the number of bots that had taken over to purposely agitate people?
Yeah, you know, what I think the problem is that if you're looking for confirmation that there is violence and there is a will to political violence, you can go find it online. And the real challenge is that so much of our lives have turned online, and people are losing a sense of in real life and finding community. I think the antidote to online-driven violence is to find community, find people that love you, for reasons that have nothing to do with politics and spend time with them in real life.
And start talking to one another. Some are saying the U.S. is at a dangerous crossroads in this moment. Do you think that's actually true? Because I do want to take a look at some of these numbers there. Just talking about how violence is ticking up in certain areas. You were just talking about this. The U.S. average, 69%, more than 5 hours per day. We're talking about that media use linked to empathy for political violence.
Yeah, I absolutely do worry about it. The United States has gone through cycles of political violence before. The obvious thing that's different now is that we didn't have access to extreme opinions whenever we wanted them. So I do worry about it. And the only thing that I can think of that could potentially be a solution is, again, to spend more time in community with one another, spend time with people we love for reasons that have nothing to do with politics.
Jason, in regards to what happened to Charlie Kirk and other incidents of violence that have been politically motivated, do Americans still support free speech?
Absolutely. Overwhelming majorities of Americans support free speech. And that high level of agreement, more than 85% of Democrats and Republicans alike support free speech. And Republicans and Democrats vastly underestimate how much the other party does. So when you ask Americans what right is most associated with being American, overwhelmingly Republicans and Democrats alike cite free speech.
Jason, do you think that things, the temperature specifically, will cool down once we've actually laid Mr. Kirk to rest? Are we still at a boiling point because tensions are still so high?
The bottom line is I think that you can find excuses to continue the cycle of violence on either side, and it's going to require both sides showing a little bit of grace.
Security for Kirk's funeral is said to be at Super Bowl levels, Jason, but already an armed man claiming to be law enforcement was arrested at State Farm Stadium. Law enforcement clocking him for suspicious behavior. What needs to be done going forward to keep not only lawmakers and political personalities safe, but everyday Americans as well who want to just simply attend?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, obviously you need law enforcement presence at events like that in order to keep people safe. But I think the big thing is just to get ourselves out of the cycle of political violence. There's not some magic solution waiting just over the horizon. It's going to be a function of a set of personal choices not to head down that path, and it's going to be a function of our political leaders showing some grace and also, frankly, policing their own parties on both left and right.
Policing our own parties on both left and right. Jason Mangone, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me.
I'm grateful. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
I think Charlie was uniquely Charlie. And Charlie, over time, learned how to apply his unique skill set. I mean, he was a five-tool athlete. There's no replacing Charlie. He could debate. He could speak on stage. He could host a radio and a podcast show. And he could organize. I mean, there's no putting all that back in one person. But Erica is the beating heart and the spiritual center and the life force. You could just feel it.
Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, is now the CEO and chair of Turning Point USA by a unanimous decision. The group was founded by Charlie back in 2012, built around conservative values, free markets, and limited government. Board members say Charlie himself told top executives he wanted Erica to take the reins if anything ever happened to him. Now she's stepping into her husband's shoes, keeping his mission alive, vowing to expand Charlie's famous campus tours and carry on his radio and podcast shows. Starting tomorrow, NewsNation will have special coverage of Charlie Kirk's funeral. It starts at 1 Eastern, 12 Central. Again, that's right here on NewsNation. The threat of a government shutdown looms after the Senate failed to pass a short-term funding bill. Democrats pushed to reverse Medicaid cuts and extend Obamacare subsidies, demanding more negotiations with Republicans over any funding deal. Congress is now in recess, but if lawmakers don't return next week, they won't get back to work until September 29th, leaving them only 1 day to avert a government shutdown and pass funding before that October 1st deadline. President Trump is back in the U.S. following a lavish, historic state visit to the U.K., blending pageantry and politics. King Charles hosted a state banquet at Windsor Castle with a full ceremony, speeches, and high-profile guests. Mr. Trump's visit, however, was overshadowed by a cloud of protests as demonstrators projected images of him with Jeffrey Epstein onto the walls and grounds of Windsor Castle. 4 people were arrested. The president also met with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, discussing trade, immigration, and foreign wars. Both leaders clashed over the state of Palestine.
It's part of that overall package which hopefully takes us from the appalling situation we're in now to the outcome of a safe and secure Israel, which we do not have, and a viable Palestinian state.
You know, Hamas said that they're going to put the hostages up as bait. They're going to put the hostages in front of any attack. And that's pretty brutal. We haven't heard that one in a long time. So we have to remember that. So I have a disagreement with the Prime Minister on that score.
At the end of the visit, both Trump and Starmer stressed the importance of their countries having, quote, a special relationship despite deep divisions on the world stage. President Trump has imposed a new $100,000 annual application fee starting tomorrow for H-1B visas, known to be widely used by tech companies to bring in foreign workers. The federal government distributes 85,000 H-1B visas a year, approved for a period of 3 to 6 years. The new fee is part of the Trump administration's broader crackdown on immigration. This comes following the State Department's announcement last month requiring a $15,000 bond for visa holders under a new program. Coming up on News Nation, the White House teasing a TikTok deal is now just days away from being signed. What the deal could entail and the control the U.S. will have over the popular social media app. Plus, the first Fed rate cut of the year is giving relief to millions of Americans and businesses nationwide. The impact the economy is already feeling because of it.